All right, welcome you guys to another guest expert interview in Empowered 365. I am so excited for this conversation today and so excited for you to meet our guest expert. The title of this one is Create What You Wish Existed with Dr. Tiffany Mullen. And to give you guys a little background, Dr. Tiffany Mullen is the co-founder of Vytal Health and has over 20 years experience practicing medicine. From just 16 months of age, Dr. Mullen dealt with a chronic disease that dominated her life. In medical school, she recognized that her needs were not being met with traditional healthcare, and neither were her parents. Frustrated, she turned to new training to fill in the gaps with integrative medicine and functional medicine. She later created Vytal Health, a personalized, holistic, safe, and natural healthcare solution powered by technology and backed by the latest science and clinical expertise. Their goal is to challenge the status quo and revolutionize healthcare. And to give you guys a little personal background, I actually met Dr. Mullen a year ago, like this week, because it's Women's Entrepreneurship Week here in Milwaukee, and we met on a virtual panel and connected, and I'm so thankful we did, because I started working with Vytal Health in June, and I've been sharing a lot on my stories. If you guys follow on Instagram, I'm sure you've seen it, but it has changed my life in just a couple months. And I was kind of at the point with multiple symptoms I was experiencing, like quite a few things where I was just like, this is how it's going to be. This is just what I have to deal with. And in less than 3 months of treatment, either the solutions are, or the symptoms are completely gone, or getting better like every day, every week. So it has been phenomenal. And I'm
happy.
And I'm very, very excited to have teamed up with Vytal Health and to be sharing it, because as Dr. Mullen and I have talked about a lot, I share a lot of self-love, mindset, all of these things that are really important, but ultimately we need to feel good physically every day to get things done. So I'm so excited to have Dr. Mullen here. She is so inspiring. I just love being in her energy. So welcome, Dr. Mullen.
Thank you. I love being in your energy too.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you give off such good vibes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. And it's 11:11, which for both of us was
I totally forgot. Yes, today's 11/11.
Yes.
And 12/12 is next, and that's my birthday. So.
Oh, that's so fun.
I know, right?
So Sagittarius, right?
Sagittarius, can't you tell? I mean, I'm like such a Sagittarius.
Yes, fire signs. I'm an Aries, so
for sure.
Like my fellow signs.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Well, what are you drinking? Did you bring a beverage?
Oh, yes. It's the middle of the day, unfortunately, and I'm still at work, as you can tell. So I'm having some tea. It's a combination of jasmine green and like a peach green. I like to take two different tea flavors and brew them together so that there's different flavors. So that's what I'm drinking right now. It's a very cold, windy, rainy day here in Milwaukee. So tea just sounded really good. And plus I'm wearing like my tweed jacket. So I may be I might throw some British in at some point during this interview. I just feel very British right now.
I love it. I love it. Very fancy.
What are you drinking?
I have a Spindrift here.
Oh. Yum. They're really good. Yeah. I drink all of mine. I used to have a whole shelf load of them, but they're gone.
Yeah, this was the last one in the fridge. I've got some lemon water nearby too. Always got a future.
Yeah, right, exactly. Good for you. I got to get better at drinking water. It's not good.
Yeah, it is tough. Well, I gave a little bit of a background, but I'd love to hear directly from you who you are, what you do. I know that's such a huge question, but tell us what you're all about.
Yeah, well, so I think I love sort of telling the story of my evolution, sort of instead of starting present day and talking about being a doctor and a business owner and things like that, because I think it really, it sort of speaks to why I do what I do. And I think that's obviously such an important part of our story is like, why did we end up where we are and what is it that we're passionate about? So as you mentioned when you were reading my bio, I was a little kid with a big health problem. Around 16, 17 months, I started to have fevers and joint swelling and this bizarre rash. I think it was on my calf. this little toddler, and, you know, really just looked like I was quite ill. And my mom and dad took me to the pediatrician, and they thought maybe I had rheumatic fever. They tried treating me with penicillin, I'm assuming. And, you know, just kind of this went on for months where nobody could figure out what was going on. And then finally, our local pediatrician in our small town in Southern Illinois said, you know, I don't know what's going on with this kid. I think you need to take her to the Children's Hospital, which the closest one was in St. Louis. I lived in Southern Illinois. And so I went there, and there was a female rheumatologist, pediatric rheumatologist, which is crazy in the 60s to have a female physician in such a specialized area. I mean, I think back to that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad this woman, who I don't even know who it was, came into my life, because she looked at me and she said, you know, this child has rheumatoid arthritis. And everyone's like, what? You know, because it's a fairly bizarre diagnosis. And even back then, I think there were probably only about 12,000 children in the States that had this or had been diagnosed with it. So it was a long journey for me, because I couldn't walk, and I had to go through two years of physical therapy. And so it was a tenacious time, I think, from my mom and dad, who I was their firstborn, and this was a new challenge for them, and taking me to physical therapy every day, 6 days a week. And then finally got back up on my feet. And then, you know, as these autoimmune diseases go, it waxes and wanes. You know, sometimes it's terrible, sometimes it's okay. When it's terrible, it's terrible. So I've had lots of surgeries. I've had lots of, you know, orthopedic type surgeries, all kinds of other issues. I lost vision in my eye, which is part of how this presents in children. Nobody knew that I had this eye vision loss because I was a little kid, you know, and I couldn't really verbalize it. So when I got to be an adult, part of what I went through was, I thought, you know, I really want to take stock in this experience, because it has shaped who I am. It has created this resiliency in me. I'm a fighter. I'm tough. I'm, you know, tenacious. And I have this experience of having been on the patient side of things, and having had so many things happen to me as a patient, painful things, procedures, scary stuff, lots and lots of blood draws, and how this shaped me as a person. And so when I got to be in my early 20s, and I was kind of having a reckoning with myself around what am I going to dedicate my life to, it just became very obvious to me that being a physician would really allow me to turn this negative experience of having had all this tough stuff happen, and turn it into a positive sort of soul-based experience, to be able to take that and transform it. And a lot of people do that. They take difficult times and difficult things that they've been through, and they're able to examine that, and then come out on the other end and say, now I have something I want to give back. And so that's what I did. So I went to medical school, and all of the training that's involved in that, 10 years, because I had to do pre-med too. And then came out the other end of it. And now I'm a doctor, and I'm on the other side, right? So I was a patient, now I'm still a patient, but now I'm a doctor. And I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, this is terrible. Like, this is not any better to be a physician. Physicians are burnt out. They're forced to be in this position of sort of a revolving door medicine, where patients are coming in, they're being seen in a very superficial way. I went into family medicine because I wanted to have relationships with patients. I wanted to be in their lives for a really long time. And I was finding myself under pressure to even stay in the room long enough to just like, how's your family? And, you know, things like that. It was so difficult. And watching all of my colleagues around me just becoming so disgruntled and disillusioned with what being a physician is about, which is being a healer. And all of that was gone. And I thought, okay, this isn't going to work. So that's when I decided to go get training in integrative medicine. I did the fellowship at the University of Arizona, functional medicine. I did some acupuncture training at UCLA, which was really interesting. And I thought, if I can transform this experience, if I can take all of these tools and create an experience where I can spend time with people in a meaningful way and a great conversation, and really get to know them, and have me be their trusted advisor, or other doctors be their trusted advisor, that's exactly what medicine is to me. That's what the definition of medicine is. It's not all the procedures and the medicines, it's the relationship between the physician and the patient. Mm-hmm. So I really wanted to transform that. So that's when I decided to go off and form Vytal Health 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that was a long journey. So thank you for walking down that circuitous path with me, but gives you context for who I am and why I think this work is so important for me.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I love it, because even though we have this relationship now, like, I don't know a lot of your backstory or, you know, personal mm-hmm. stuff. So I'm like, you know, a lot of this I am learning or hearing for the first time. So I love it. And I mean, I even think with what I'm doing, even though our careers look so different. It's interesting taking like what we struggled with and kind of all of the harder parts of our lives and really using that as fuel to do what we do today. And, I think that ties in perfectly with the theme of this, create what you wish existed. And we'll talk a little bit more about it, but I think a lot of people feel that call, and it's
absolutely,
what is my purpose or what's my path? And it's like, it's usually going to look like who you needed or what you needed when you were younger. So
absolutely, or what it was that was so transformational for you. And a lot of times it's not a positive thing. It's going through some very difficult thing. And as I was saying that, I was thinking of you because I know of your journey and the things that you've been through and how you've transformed that difficult time into something incredibly positive. You've come out better, and now you're helping, the ripples of that are helping other people. Mm-hmm. So our stories are different themes, but they're sort of the nugget of why is very similar.
Yeah, totally.
That's probably why we went so well.
Yes. So I know you shared some of your struggles, and I know a lot of women have like either a rock bottom or a turning point, or sometimes multiple, that really, leads them to make major changes. So you shared a little bit, but is there anything else in your life that, you've gone through to get to where you are today that's really shaped, again, the work you're doing or just the way you're living today, or anything you needed to overcome?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I mean, I think in order to, so I'll take it, I'll take it in this direction. I can take it in a lot of different directions, but I think to do a business, especially at my stage. So I'm 54. I launched this business when I was 51, and I had 3 teenagers in the house. And it's not a typical time where most working parents would say, like, you know what, I'm going to drop everything I'm doing and I'm going to jump off this cliff and I'm going to build an airplane as I'm, flying it, all these crazy metaphors. And so that was kind of an atypical journey for me. So for me, I think it was that I had to decide that I could do it. And I think that's a lot of what people struggle with if they're going to build a business or launch some type of project or, whether it's a professional thing or a personal thing, they have to decide, I can do this, or I want to try. And so for me, I just had to get the courage. I had to get some skills too, but I needed to get the courage to be able to say, like, I think I can actually go do this. It took me a lot longer than it takes a lot of people. Like I had to get to my middle life to get there. But yeah, I think it's that piece. And then learning how to take care of myself in the process. And I had to learn that really early because 3 months in, and I think I talked about this on another panel I was on with you, Justine, but 3 months into the building the business, I had a profound health issue. It's not really related to my rheumatoid arthritis, where I started leaking spinal fluid. So we have spinal fluid that surrounds our brains and our spinal cord. And for whatever reason, it spontaneously started to leak. And when it does that, it pulls your brain backwards because it's all floating, right? So if you drain the bathtub, everything gets pulled backwards. And when it did that, it sheared a whole bunch of blood vessels off and I ended up with a brain bleed. And what I learned through that process was just how completely messed up the healthcare system is. I mean, I kind of knew that before, but nobody could figure this out. Nobody could get a diagnosis. And I was so out of it that I couldn't even contribute. So I got some crazy labels of all kinds of diagnoses that didn't work, and several procedures didn't work, and finally ended up going up to the Mayo in Rochester, Minnesota, and was feeling better after that. But it was a very traumatic experience as a standalone problem, but then also as a new business owner, I was literally flat on my back for 2 months, like flat on my back. I couldn't sit up. I was seeing patients, but I was like holding my laptop over my head, or being on the phone or whatever. So it was really like very scary to think about, what if I can't do this? What if this is my new normal? What have I done? So just overcoming that experience and being on the other side of it, and then saying, like, well, if I can do that, if I can keep a business afloat with help, of course, during that time, pretty much everything else is going to be okay. So it was a painful way to learn how to be tough around this whole new business piece.
Yeah. So when you were in that and going through that, because sometimes it's just like the worst timing of things. It's like, here you took that leap. Yeah. And you're already doing something that's uncomfortable or scary, all of that. And then that comes in. So what did you do to get yourself through that time?
I think for me, it was really just, first of all, I had tons of support. I'm so lucky. I have an amazing husband, my business partner, my family, friends. People just helped a lot. And I'm terrible about asking for help. I mean, just terrible about it, but I had no choice. I mean, I couldn't do any of it. So for me, I think it was just realizing that I had all this amazing support in my life, and then just time had to pass. It was very traumatic. It's like any traumatic thing that happens to people, whether they're in a car accident or something happens, and you just need time to process it, heal, and then get to the point where you don't feel afraid that it's going to happen again. You know, it took me a long time to sort of shake off, like it was this very sudden thing, and nothing precipitated it. So it was like, well, how did this happen? You know? And so then not being afraid that it's going to happen again took me a long time to do that. And then learning how to get back on my feet and take care of myself, go back to the gym, you know, go back to being social, and all of those kind of things. So for me, it was time.
Yeah. Wow.
Time and therapy. Lots of therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure, because
Yeah.
that sounds incredibly traumatic.
Yeah, it is. I mean, people go through those things, right? Whether they're emotional problems or physical problems, it's hard. Really knocks you off your game.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then it's like, I know both of us are very much like the mind body connection. So I'm even thinking then when you've got that fear of something happening again, like I try not to do that. If I have like
Yeah.
a weird little random symptom, I try not to go on like WebMD and like, oh my gosh, it's this, like worst case scenario. But it's like when you've had an experience that is kind of a worst case scenario, I would imagine it's very hard to keep your thoughts from going there. And then it's like, then you're giving it so much energy. That's
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. But the interesting thing was the exact opposite was true for me before, such that this whole thing happened and I had this, I mean, next level headache because of all the bleeding and just down for the count for 4 days, couldn't eat, it took me 4 days for my husband to convince me. He kept saying, I want to take you to the emergency room. I'm like, no, I don't want to go to the emergency room because I hated healthcare so much. I'm like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. 4 days to go to the emergency room. And by then I was really behind the 8 ball. And so for me, it's this like, because I've had so many physical things, I tend to minimalize. I tend to say like, oh, no, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. So I'm exactly the opposite. I'm not the person who's going to like go take care of it right away or go figure out what it is. I'm going to wait. Mm-hmm. And when I told people that story, everyone was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how are you laying there for 4 days in this state and, totally refusing to go to the emergency room when you should have gone day one? Everyone kind of took me by the shoulders and said, don't ever do that again, So I had to learn how to listen to my body, because I've gotten really good at saying like, okay, pain there, whatever. And I tune it out. But now it's like, no, you can't do that. You can't just minimalize everything. You have to pay attention. So that was an important lesson, I think, for me because I'm conditioned the way that I am from my childhood illness, to say like, yeah, you need help. And yeah, you need to do something about it sooner. So
yeah. Painful lesson to learn.
Totally. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah. So diving in a little deeper, create what you wish existed. I love this topic too, because again, very different, but similar theme. It was 4 years ago now, I think, that I wanted a women's entrepreneurship network in town. And that's what I was talking to a friend, and she's like, you should just make that. You should do that. I did. And, I know just for the last couple of years with Boss Ladies MKE, it's just been a very interesting journey, learning as you go. And again, very different than launching like an actual business. It's kind of something that for me was for fun. But, I always think that when people, again, a lot of people are looking to like feel like they're more in their purpose, or, looking for really fulfilling, meaningful work in their lives.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, again, it is like right in front of you, that thing that you wish existed. We have the power to create that, but there's so much that goes into actually taking those steps. So I'd love to hear, when you were at that point and started like, from the first idea of what if we created this, and, kind of the beginning stages of that journey. I'd love to hear what that looked like for you, or, what was coming up for you.
Yeah. So I think the impetus behind it was that so much of what we do as physicians and in healthcare, for whatever reason, made so little sense to me. So the first 2 years of medical school, you are learning the very tiny, very intricate ways that the body functions down at the cellular level, where you're looking at like, and then sodium goes over here. And, it was absolutely amazing. It was the most amazing experience, overwhelming for sure, but like to be able to be on the receiving end of somebody telling you exactly how the body works, and then, doing a dissection so that you can see the body. These are such privileged things to be able to experience. And I was amazed by that. I always talk about it like I was given the keys to the kingdom. I just felt like it was so such an amazing experience to do that. And then, you get out into clinical practice and everything gets sort of dumbed down. We stop thinking about how the body works. And then we start thinking about like the heart's over here and the lungs are over there and the musculoskeletal system is there and the nervous system is here. And nary shall these things ever meet one another. That never made sense to me at all. That the hormones are not talking to the nervous system and the nervous system isn't interfacing with the gut, and it just didn't make any sense. And then to bring everything to a prescription as sort of the only instrument that we use to treat people made no sense to me either, because a lot of times I'm thinking, well, you have diabetes because of the way that you eat. And instead of addressing the way that you eat, because I don't have the time, I'm going to give you this pill, which doesn't solve anything, but just perpetuates the problem. And it's going to take years off of your life and will never end up addressing the thing that will transform your health and keep you alive and keep you healthy and not suffering with all the things. And then that's just an example, but that didn't make sense to me. Like, why are we not addressing the elephant in the room? Why are we not saying, like, we know what causes a lot of diseases? Why don't we deal with that? Why is the health system and the reimbursement system stacked against that way of transacting with people? And so that was, so I had all these head scratchers. And then why aren't we preventing? We would be in the hospital and rounding on a patient who just had a massive heart attack, and we just put 3 stents in them, and they're eating the worst. They're in the ICU and they're eating processed, sugary, carb food. And I'm thinking, I'm looking around the room and I'm like, is anybody like worried about the fact that we just put stents in this person and they're eating this very inflammatory diet? So I was always that person that was just like, what the heck is going on in this place? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So it was all of those things. I was just like, day after day after day of saying, all these things don't make sense. Somebody needs to do this different. Somebody needs to transform this. To your point. Okay. Oh, wait, I guess it must be me. Like, I'm the one asking the question. I guess I have to do it. So I just said, like, I think this is where we could use a scalable, solution-oriented way of addressing these problems, getting people healthy at the core, at the root cause, which is what we do in functional medicine. Mm-hmm. And then not only do they suffer less, but then we're transforming their trajectory going forward. We're actually creating health and longevity, because everyone wants that, right? So why wouldn't we wrap a healthcare system, a new way of having a healthcare system around that way of thinking, whole person, not just symptom management, but getting at the root, solving issues, and then let's personalize your trajectory forward so that you're healthy and symptom-free as much as possible for you as an individual. And that's why I founded this company. And then we created it as a digital platform so that you could get to the right person. You could have a physician who was perfect for you, for your issues, and for the kind of personality you have, even if they weren't here in your own neighborhood. They could be in another state, or they could have somebody who you would never cross paths with unless we had this, unless we made this a digital experience. So that's kind of the impetus behind it.
Yeah. And I'm a huge fan, as you know, and I love to, just the convenience of the virtual appointments.
Yeah.
It's so much more in depth and you feel really seen and heard, but also like, now that I can pop open my laptop from home, I'm like, I don't know how I could ever go back.
Yeah, I think it's really, COVID obviously accelerated all this, but I think it's really going to transform the type of relationships that we have, because this is conversational medicine. This is relationship-based medicine. There are times when people need to be examined, of course, but I think for the most part, when we're doing this work, we're listening. We're using our ears. That's the biggest tool we have in our toolbox in functional medicine. And to be able to do that via video in someone's home where it's convenient for them. And also I get to see the environment. I get to be in their space with them. There's something sort of magical and spiritual about that too. It's like a digital house call.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
No?
Yeah.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, just from talking out loud with this too, thinking about my experience as a patient, it's because it's so in depth and, you really do get the full picture and ask the questions. And I'm thinking, even like to give you guys TMI, but one of my issues was I had like flaky scalp for like 6 or 7 years, had gone a lot of places, just gave up on it. I was like, that's just how I am. And first consultation, Dr. Mullen was like, is, this your nationality background, like this is probably what it is, and here you go, and like problem solved. So we got that treated. And then I'm even thinking like with my happy light, that too just came from, a lot of times when we go to a traditional doctor appointment, it's like you just focus on whatever the biggest problem is. But I think because we talked about everything, that it came out like, oh, actually I do, like last fall I really struggled with seasonal depression. So it was like, okay, boom, we're going to get vitamin D in your supplement packets, and here's a recommendation for this light. And like, so I think part of it too is because you do spend so much time with the patient and, really cover every angle. And then you guys have, I know, a health coach and like provide nutritional counseling as well when people need that. Yes. So I think that's so important because again, otherwise you're just kind of in and out for like whatever the main red flag is. And then
that's exactly right. I mean, that's how people access the healthcare system for the most part. It's when you're sick, right? That's the only time you really touch it. Like why, or you might go in for a pap smear or some sort of preventative thing, but for the most part, you're touching the healthcare system when you're sick. And therefore, the only thing that's being dealt with is the thing that's right in front of you at that moment. But there may be other things that are contributing, and there may be other things that are causing you suffering on the day to day that are never going to get addressed during those types of short visits where it's like, no, I'm really just focused on your sinus infection. I don't want to really hear about your, seasonal affective disorder or whatever else is going on. It's not helpful to people to bring it down to something, boil it down to something simple. I get so disgusted when I hear people say they go to the doctor and the doctor literally only allows them to talk about one topic. That's it. And if they try to go into like, well, but also I'm not sleeping well, it's like shut down. It's like, but the sleep may actually be the reason, that this problem is happening. So it's a system that needs a massive overhaul. And so we're starting that process. We're starting it in a very different way. But we recognize the fact that people need to be heard. They need to have their stories addressed. They need to be treated as whole individuals. And they need to be treated as, and I need to be treated as an individual person with my particular biology, my belief system and values, my circumstances, my family, all of those things need to be taken into consideration. That's how we actually get people better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that so much.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I did it. I wanted it, right? That's why we do these things. This is what I want.
Mm-hmm, totally. Yeah. And the nutrition piece too, like I couldn't agree more. I always say, because I try to give my clients too, I'm big on intuitive eating and, food freedom, but it's like also we have to have a basic understanding of, especially blood sugar is what I focus on.
Yeah.
Everything. And I always say, I didn't get any information on that growing up, like in high school or anything. I was never taught anything about nutrition, and it's directly correlated to almost all diseases.
Everything. Yes.
I mean, mental health, gut health.
Everything. Yes. I remember being on my gastroenterology rotation as a student, and I said, well, how, what kind of nutritional input should this person who had an inflammatory bowel disease? And they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm like, how can it not matter? That's what you're putting in there. Like that's where the disease is. Like what? That makes no sense. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the gut produces 70% of our serotonin. Well, yeah, if your gut's not working, you're not going to feel good in your brain. So I never learned that in medical school. I never learned that in residency. That was integrative and functional medicine training. And when I talk to my traditional colleagues, they have no idea. They have no idea about that. They're not thinking about the brain and the gut or the skin and the gut or they're not thinking about these things as having a cohesive connectiveness, which is crazy. It's like, no, that's actually how physiology works, So anyway,
Totally.
Not easy.
Yeah. So I know you touched on this a little bit with starting the business, and like, I think for really any woman I talk to that's like started something, it's like fear comes up, self-doubt comes up, imposter syndrome, like, who am I to do this? Can I do this? All of that. So was anything really helpful as far as like really getting that courage and taking the leap? Or can you tell us a little bit about what that was like for you?
Oh gosh. I think in terms of taking the leap, and leaving a very stable job. I mean, I had a great job in traditional healthcare. I needed to get, I think, to my own level of discomfort in my traditional healthcare job in order to be so uncomfortable that I'm like, I literally can't do this anymore. So it was a series of things that happened to me sort of in the last couple of years of my time in the traditional healthcare system, where I was trying to make change inside and I couldn't. And I was hitting it up against a brick wall over and over and over again. And I was being turned down and told no. And it is super frustrating. And I think a lot of women, particularly, all people have those moments, but women particularly get that all the time, where we're constantly being shut down. And, it's just like what you want to do and how you see the world is not important. So I'm now looking back very thankful, obviously, for all of those experiences, because they pointed me out the door and allowed me to take this risk. Now, all of the things that you said, feeling insecure, having imposter syndrome, somebody called it imposter phenomenon this morning. I thought that was great. I'm like, oh yeah, it's imposter phenomenon. Those are real. And I think I deal with that. I think I probably have moments of that every single day, every day, because you get pushed, you get pushed into things that I've never done this before. I don't really know how to best resolve this problem. And then as you begin to solve some problems and it goes okay and you get some experience, it helps. I think the best thing that I did during the early years of starting the company was to put my friends around me and let them help support me, keep me going, tell me I'm awesome when I'm not feeling awesome. I mean, and in a very sort of supportive and empathic way. I think that really makes such a difference when you can share this experience with people, even if they don't know what it feels like, even if they've not done it themselves, and they love you and care for you. Even when you F up and you have a terrible, something terrible happens, they're just around you. I think that really, really, really helps a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I feel the same. I think that's amazing advice. And I know for me, when I'm feeling down or off or like in my head, I have a tendency to isolate. Like I don't want to burden people with my problems.
Totally. Yeah.
Rationale. But I find that like, even just this morning, I woke up and instantly I was like upset about something. So I reached out and sent a voice note to one of my closest friends, and she gave me like a solution, and then I did it and I was like, oh, I feel so much better already.
Yes.
But even,
right.
Even if it's just someone saying like, hey, it's okay. Or like, yeah, that sucks. Like I hear you, see you. I think it's just so helpful to actually vocalize our experience and not just keep it all bottled up. Cause I know then I stew and it's not a good.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think as doctors, particularly, we're so used to being at the top of the food chain. It's like the doctor is the expert and you're just on that pedestal and you're supposed to know everything. You're always supposed to know everything. So even my family, like they'll ask me some question about a cat and I'm like, I'm not a veterinarian. Like, I don't know anything about cats,
Yeah.
So they think, oh, because you're a scientist, all of science, like, geology. I'm like, I don't know any of that stuff. So you're used to that. And then they train you to be very self-sufficient. So you're not supposed to like not know things. You're not supposed to go to your colleague and say like, I don't get this, or I don't understand, or could you look at this patient? I don't know what's happening. Like that's like shunned. You're never supposed to do that. So I think I have sort of a level of perfectionism that's sort of ingrained in my DNA. And then when I went to medical school and then I learned these behaviors about, okay, don't ask questions, look like you know what's going on all the time, don't show that you don't know something. That's a terrible way to be, because that's the ultimate in keeping all your problems to yourself. Because nobody ever knows that there's anything wrong, because you never say like, I'm scared, I don't know, I don't feel good about it or whatever. And I had to unlearn all of that. I had to unlearn all of that. I had to start telling people like, I'm such a mess. Like I'm a mess. I would never say that before. I would never say like, I'm overwhelmed or I can't or whatever. and let people see that side of you. And when they see that side of you, it gives everyone the permission to be just like vulnerable in who they are. And you don't feel like you have to just kind of be awesome and perfect all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. As a doctor and then a leadership
Yeah.
role too, you know, like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel that.
So keeping it real, you know, Justine, keeping it real.
Yes. Yeah. And it's refreshing. And I think of, you know, the women I admire most, and they are like, they're real, they're approachable, they're vulnerable, like, you know, their struggles. And that makes me love people more.
Yeah. You like them more.
Yeah. Cause otherwise it's so like unattainable. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to tell that person my problems because
Yes. They got everything going on.
Yeah.
And I don't. Oh my God, what's wrong with me? Yeah. I mean, we all feel like that, you know? So
Totally.
yeah, that's true.
Totally. So if you could go back and give your younger self advice at any age, any younger version of you, what would that be? What stands out for you?
I think even though I don't necessarily think of myself as someone who lives in fear, I'm not afraid. I think that I have been in my life very, very much afraid of failure. That's one of my biggest fears, is that I'll do something and I'll fail at it. And if you asked anybody in my life, you know, hey, if you asked Tiffany what would she be afraid of, would she be afraid of fear of failure? They're like, no, because she just goes and does stuff. You know, she just goes to medical school and she just, you know, launches a business. But under that is this person who's like, oh my God, if I fail, all of these terrible things are going to happen. And I still wrestle with that. But I would probably do a lot less of it. I would take leaps and I would take chances. I'm not risk averse. I'll take chances. I'll do risky things, but I don't want to live in a fear place. I want to live in the excitement side of that, not the fear side of that. And so I would tell my younger self, like, go have fun with it. Don't worry so much about whether it's going to work or not. You know, if it doesn't work, you'll have lessons, you'll have stories to tell, but you'll be fine, you know? So take the pressure off.
Yeah. I feel that too. I'm like, probably your signs, like that completely could be advice for me as well. And is so.
Yeah.
So obviously in your role as a doctor, as a leader, as a mother, as a wife, you know, you're a lot to a lot of people. So what are some daily, weekly, monthly routines, self-care practices? What do you do to take care of you? What does that look like?
I think the top two for me are exercise. And part of the reason I like exercise so much is because I have been so challenged from a musculoskeletal standpoint with this RA, that having strength and keeping my body strong and fit really helps my condition a lot. So it's like a side effect of exercise is that I move better, I have better range of motion and strength in my muscles, and that really helps me a lot. But it also, so it's a privilege to be able to exercise, because there could have been a time in my life where I would not be at the point where I'm at now, which is amazing. Thank you to those physical therapists so many years ago. The other thing is that it allows me to get into my head. And oftentimes when I exercise, I'll listen to like really upbeat music, sometimes kind of like, you know, like badass music. And it like gets me to start my day like with the sense of like, you know, like I can do this. So it kind of pumps me up, you know, it gives me that energy that I need. And then on the flip side of that, because I'm such an extrovert and because I do solve a lot of people's problems, I do have people kind of coming at me all day, whether it's employees or it's patients or my kids or whatever. One of the things that I absolutely have to have is I have to have alone time. I have to be able to be quiet. I have to not speak. I need to be able to, I like to do things by myself. So sometimes I'll just get in my car and I'll take my computer and I'll go down to Chicago and I'll spend an afternoon or a day in one of my favorite coffee shops or hangouts, and I'll work there. Like I have work to do, but it's a different environment. It gets me out of my comfort zone. It gives me space. Nobody's coming for me. I can just be in that space. And then just doing the drive, you know, getting that drive where I'm in the car for a couple of hours alone, maybe listening to music, maybe listening to a podcast, or maybe I'm just thinking. I absolutely have to have that. And as I'm getting older, I'm finding myself more and more in need of tranquility. Part of that is having teenagers in your house that'll do it to you. but it's just really nice to unplug, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that idea. I'm
Yeah.
like, I should do that. Yeah.
I mean, or just go to a spa. Like I love to go up to Kohler and go to the go to the American Club spa, the water spa, and just hang out. Because you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can do one little service and then you get the whole day. You can just hang out, you can go in the pool, and just it's super peaceful. So even you don't have to go to Kohler. There's experiences like that in Milwaukee or wherever you live, but it's just really, really nice to unplug and just be quiet and in your own way, tuning in, tuning out, however you want to talk about it.
I love that. Yeah, I was actually just at that spa for the first time.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, with my mom, and it was a Wednesday, I think, or a Thursday.
Perfect.
And yeah, there was like barely anyone there,
Yeah.
like the areas. So we were just hanging out in our robes and it was great.
So great. And you feel fancy, you feel fancy because you have your cucumber water and you have your robe and
and my phone was locked in the locker.
Exactly. You can't have your phone on you. So, oh well, nobody can find it.
Yeah. Awesome. So what are you most excited about right now? Looking forward, 2022 coming up, or next couple of months, what are you most excited about?
So from a business perspective, I mean, this 2021, I mean, everyone talks about 2020 as being this like, terrible COVID year. But 2021 was like, yeah, we're vaccinated now. And yeah, we can move around a little bit, but it's still a lot of the same. It's still a lot of COVID stuff happening. And so I'm really hoping that as we move into 2022, we will in a very genuine way be able to move past some of this stuff. It's definitely wearing on people, causing a lot of mental health problems and really upending a lot of our lives. So I'm looking forward to that. But then from a business perspective, we're working on a new partnership that we have. It's a national partnership. We're going to be partnering with this company that's going to allow us to be able to see some of their members on our business platform. So we'll be transforming the business a little bit around that, adding some physicians to our platform. And I'm really excited to see how that goes. But it's sort of the constant like changing. And for the most part, I mean, I think that's the name of the game when you're in business is you have to be reactive to the information that your customers are giving you or new ideas and things that are happening in your industry. And you're trying to figure out, how do I change my own business or think about my own business differently? And because I really love strategy, like that's my favorite thing. I love thinking about like, okay, what do I need to anticipate in the next 6 to 12 months? And what do I need to be thinking about now to get us there? So that's exciting. And then, just things, time moving forward. I think I have sent one off to college this year. That's exciting. Getting my kids through the school year. It's a lot of work when you have kids of any age in this environment with COVID, trying to keep everyone safe and deal with all the, pitfalls and polarization that we have in our communities and all that kind of stuff. So being able to move forward, I'm hoping with a lot more community and togetherness in our world. And then my personal excitement is, two things. One, I learned how to scuba dive this year.
That's something I have like too much fear. I have some water phobia stuff. So
that's exactly why I did it. I got to the point where I almost drowned when I was a kid. And so I was always very afraid of I'm a good swimmer, but I was always afraid sort of big bodies of water, big boats and things like that. Yeah. And for whatever reason, I just decided I was going to go do this. And so now I'm really interested in the idea of doing like environmental preservation around the coral reefs and doing cleanup and things like that. So I'm very excited to get involved in going on some of these dive expeditions where we go out and we clean up all the like fishing line and all the stuff that's down at the bottom of the ocean floor that's harming the coral reef and the life that's living down there. I heard on a program that I was listening to this week that if we don't start doing something different about our approach to the environment and global warming, by the end of the century, we won't have coral reefs at all. And that's 77 years. And that's like my mind just like blew up when I heard that. I was like, oh my gosh, that is really heartbreaking to think about. If you've seen a coral reef and how incredibly beautiful and how much life it sustains, and my heart kind of broke. So I'm like, I definitely have to get involved in that. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm learning how to speak Italian. So I'm taking Italian lessons and I'm hoping to somehow hitchhike my way over.
Yeah.
Probably not next year, but hopefully the next year, my son, who's a college student, will be wanting to do a year abroad, and that's going to give me an excuse to go over. And
Yes.
yeah, so
Totally.
looking forward to that. What are you excited about? Sorry, this is your interview, but I'm just
No, I like it. Well, we are, speaking of like scuba diving, I'll be snorkeling
hey,
we're in Hawaii in December. So I'm
oh
very
sweet. Where in Hawaii are you going?
Oahu. We're like staying in
beautiful.
Waikiki. And we're actually shark diving one day. They like
That'll be amazing.
Yeah, they take you in a small group, and there's like a little cage, so you have a snorkel, but you're not very deep, and you can get in and out of the cage. So that felt really good too. Like if I do get freaked out, then I can calm myself down, get back in.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not swimming with great whites, there's a lot of sharks that are super, super nice. I mean, they're very docile.
Yeah, I think these are big ones, but because from the reviews, people are like, you'd think you'd see one or two, but you see a bunch. So they're like obviously feeding them to get them. So as long as
hopefully they're not feeding the snorkelers to them.
Yeah, as long as I don't have like a cut from shaving or something.
Right. Don't shave.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's like the most adventure
That's super cool
in a while. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to it's right before the holidays. We come back like late on the 22nd. So then it kind of rolls in, and I have a couple weeks off, and I haven't had a couple weeks off in, I can't remember how long either. Cause
weeks.
Yeah. Because I'm my own boss. So I have a crazy boss that makes me work all the time.
Guilty.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
Enjoy that. That's fun. Say hi to the sharks for me. Tell them I'm coming.
Yeah, I know. I was going to ask, do you have any trips planned with the scuba diving?
I'm going to try to go in the first part of next year. I'm not exactly sure when.
Why?
I think I'm probably going to go back down to the Florida Keys, which is where I dove last year, or actually this year. It was earlier this year, and it's so beautiful. And there's just a great group of people down there who do this work. And it's a great time to dive. It's actually it's not, the water's a little cooler. And because it can get really warm in the summer to go diving, believe it or not. So that'll probably be what I do. And I typically do that by myself. Nobody else in my family dives. Yeah. So I'll go on my own and then hook up with a group of divers and go out and do that. But other than that, no other travel plans right now. Just too many moving parts with the kids, and the business. Yeah. Trying to manage all that. Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. Solo trips are always fun too. It's like just an experience. You feel like yourself again, kind of just.
Totally. Yeah. You go out, dive in the morning, and then you just nap in the afternoon. It's fabulous.
Sounds awesome. I feel like I only nap on vacations. Like
totally. I only nap when I'm sick and when I'm on vacation.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of this. This has been just awesome for me too, personally.
Yeah.
Dive in deeper. So for anyone who is interested in connecting more, where can they find you?
Well, we are at www.vytal health, and Vytal is spelled with a Y, VYTAL, health.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Your Vytal Health. On our website, there's lots and lots of blogs and things, lots of educational materials that you can look at, videos, et cetera, that kind of talk about functional medicine and different conditions. So, please feel free to use that resource. And we're in downtown Milwaukee in the 3rd Ward, but we don't actually see patients in person, but we are a local business here in Milwaukee. And so we like to see people out and about, various events and things like that. So you'll find us in some of those places as well. We're going to be doing the Small Business Showcase at Tempo tomorrow, which will be really cool. So hopefully we'll see some other entrepreneurial women there. I know we will. I've actually, some of the other people that are contributing. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. This is
my pleasure. It's always fun to hang out with you, Justine.
Yes, you too. And thank you guys for tuning in. And as I said, I can't say enough good things about Vytal Health. It's seriously such a blessing. I'm so grateful. And yeah, just so grateful for you, Dr. Mullen. So thank you.
I'm glad.
All right. See you later.
Take care. Great to see you.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.